This is Jody J. Sperling, and I'm the host of this here podcast, Becoming a Household Name. So I mentioned about a week ago that if I didn't feel my growth was strong enough on Instagram, I might start looking for some other ways to bolster what I'm doing and have a bigger impact. And I think that's probably where I'm at coming into today's episode. So I want to do a quick review of where my Instagram is at today. You can go back and listen. I've been doing a series of these updates for about the past 4 weeks, letting you guys know how my heavy focus on Instagram is affecting book sales, followers, and reach with new posts. Basically just building attention around Jody J. Sperling, the author. And I'm going to admit ahead of time, I'm a little bit discouraged this week, and I will get into all of the reasons why as I unpack where I'm at today. So currently, I have 709 followers on Instagram. We did break the 700 mark, which is about 80 gained followers over the past 4 weeks. That's roughly 20 followers per week. It's not enough. At that current rate of growth, it would take me about 50 years to have enough followers to be impactful. And I just don't think that Instagram is going to hold on that long. There's going to be a new something. So I have to learn how to grow faster. I'm using the same strategies now, so I'm not going to go into depth on those. But the main ones are going to be, I have a sign at my in-person shows. I'll talk a little bit about the in-person shows here in a minute, but it just has a QR code. And when people ask if I have a business card now, instead of giving them my poster or my little flyer with information for my website, I say, I'm sorry, I don't have one, but you can scan this QR code and all of my books are available on Instagram. You can just follow that to the website. Feel free to drop me a follow there. I often will do giveaways for the first audiobook in the Luke and Time Mysteries. So I do gain followers through that. The next way I gain followers is by reciprocal commenting, going onto profiles of people who identify as readers and do a lot of book reviews on Instagram. I'll find those posts, comment on them, like a few posts, and drop a follow when I feel like they're in my genre. A lot of times, but I would not even say the majority of the time, I get a follow back from those people. I have been working to make sure that I don't have too high of a ratio of follow to unfollow. So in other words, if I follow somebody, I give them 3 days to a week to follow back. If they haven't followed back at that point, I typically do go and unfollow. And that's because there's a lot of data surrounding the metrics. You want to have more followers than people you follow. And so even though that seems mercenary in some ways, I pay attention to it because I want to give myself the best opportunity to grow as efficiently as possible. Can't tell you whether it makes a big difference because, like I said, I'm not growing too quick on Instagram at this point. And the final way that I do get followers is through creating reels that have reach. And so you will find out that one of the reels maybe hit somebody the right way and they dropped you a follow because they really liked that reel. And it'll say on your notifications, so-and-so followed you based on your reel. That's not the exact language it uses, but that's what happens. So in terms of the reels that I have posted over the last week and what kind of reach, I've been all over the board, to be honest. And that is going to be part of why I feel a little bit discouraged about where we're at. So let me hit the discouraging parts and the encouraging parts both. I did a reel last week that I believe was a clip from The Voice. Authors send out agent queries. I keep getting rejected. They just don't understand my genius. And it is a quick clip of a lady who was absolutely horrible singing. And so it was a joke about, like, I don't know why I get rejected, and it's because your work is not great. I'm sure that happened to me plenty in the beginning. That one got just under 5,000 views. I do think I got a few follows based on that reel. The next one was a clip from Thor, the Ragnarok movie. That one got just under 3,000 views. Then I was encouraged because I did a stitch instead of the other kind of reel. And so I actually just used myself in the beginning of the reel, looking at the camera and said, how do you know your child will one day be a great novelist? And then it's got a picture of a kid that's most likely to, I can't remember what it is, but anyways, that one is actually me interacting with the camera, and it got over 1,000 views. So I felt like that was good. Anytime I can get my own personal face out there and 1,000 people see it, that's probably a lot better for my author brand than just repurposing content, though I don't think it got any followers. Another one where I showed my face, I got 1,500. Then I had one with an oil gusher, somebody lighting it on fire, and I did use my book cover in that one. That one got over 3,000, so I got some good ones, but there was also a few in there that didn't quite hit the 1,000 mark. 651, 364, 300, 108. So I've just really been all over the board. Currently, my most recent two, I have 11 views. I just posted that this morning, and then another that has 340 views. So maybe I'm not hitting the reels that people are really resonating with, or that are not really resonating with people, but not getting quite as much reach. So I need to figure out how to do a little bit better there. I also want to focus on making more content where I am actually the person in the reel talking about my books and figuring out how to do that more effectively. But generally speaking, I need to tweak my approach on Instagram because the growth is just not fast enough, and I'm not going to get the kind of reach and the book sales that I need at this current pace. So one thing I did start adding in, and this was about 3-4, well, maybe even as much as a week ago, I decided for people who were following me, I put together a quick, easy form letter that said, hey, I noticed that you enjoy reading mysteries. I have a novel called The 9 Lives of Marva DeLonghi. I'd love to gift you a copy of the ebook or the audiobook, whichever you prefer. And all I'd ask is if you accept the book, do a quick shout out on Instagram after you read it. So trying to drive some book reviews. And at this point, I think I've gotten 5 or 6 people who have accepted that. One has already dropped a story review of the book. It didn't get a ton of traction, so I was disappointed with that, but really excited that in theory, this will work to get other people tagging me, talking about my book, and getting it out there, telling their audience about it. I feel like when you can get other people talking about your book, it has a lot better of a chance of catching. So I don't have enough data yet to tell you whether that's true, but I do know that I had one person actually read it quickly. She really enjoyed it. She said it gave her that like 1940s, 1950s noir, hard-boiled vibe, which is exactly what I'm going for. And she thought it was a fun story. She even private messaged me and said, I really love this book. Thanks so much. So people don't have to do that. If they don't like a book, they can not post about it. They can not do anything. And so I believe that she enjoyed it. And that's a good sign that the book should resonate with people when I reach out to them. So we'll tell you more as I start to see some of those drop and see if we can generate a little bit more interest in my books and get other people tagging me, talking about me. Maybe I can get some more follows through that, perhaps some book sales. We'll just have to wait and see on that. So that is one of the new things I'm adding in. I need to figure out some other stuff. And if I'm honest with you, I don't know right now exactly what that is. I've been waking up the last few days feeling pretty discouraged because I'm putting a lot of time into Instagram and I'm not seeing results. And that has led me to feel a little bit lazy, like I don't want to put in the energy. And I know that that is the worst thing I could do, is to back off. I don't want to back off, but I do need to figure out a way to add in a little bit more. So all of the work that I did last week, I can't again guarantee that it led to a book sale, but I did have a book sale through Amazon this last week. And most of the time I was not getting book sales. So that means 3 of the 4 weeks that I've been doing this, I have had book sales. One came through my website for the 4 paperback books deal that I offer off my website. The other 2 came off of Amazon. As of this morning, I don't have any new book sales, so definitely not driving the kind of sales that I need. I don't yet have a reel that I feel like has popped well enough that I could convert to use for any type of advertising. I'd be interested in trying that out. If I got an organic reel to get several thousand views, and I was able to actually use it to advertise. Any of the ones that I repurpose with a remix or a stitch, I can't use because it's somebody else's property, so you can't advertise with those anyway. However, I did have one that got just over 1,000, and this was probably 10 or so days ago. I decided to put $2 of ad spend per day for 5 days behind that reel, and I saw exactly no growth, new followers, or interest in my books from doing it. So I jumped the gun on that. That was probably me being impatient. $10 experiment. What I can tell you is that if your reel was only good enough to get about 1,000 views, then trying to put ad spend behind it is not going to move the needle. So I will experiment again if I can get an organic reel of my own content that leaps to, let's say, 5,000. That's where I'm going to say maybe 5,000 views on an organic reel is enough to get a little bit of momentum behind it. So as soon as that happens, I will let you know where we're at with that. This last weekend, I was in Des Moines at the Merle Hay Mall for QuadCon. I have done probably a dozen QuadCons around the Middle West, and every single one up until this show had been not just profitable, but good and profitable. So I would consider a show good and profitable when I at least double the amount of money that I spent to get there and all of the expenses. If I can double my income, then it's good. And that's a fairly small ask. When you're talking about QuadCons costing about $65 to get yourself a table, you can spend an extra $20 and then they will provide the table so you don't have to bring your own. I've stopped doing that because I do have a table that I take around with me. So $65 plus whatever gas it costs. In this case, it was a 3-hour drive from where I'm at to Des Moines. So that was about $50 in gas. And I made enough money on my first day to cover expenses. And then I sold 3 books on Sunday for a whopping total of 14 books. I sold just 14 books this last weekend, and that was a really hard hit. My friend, he's been on this podcast as a guest before. His name is Joe Prozit. He had a booth in the center of the mall where there's a nice big skylight, and he sold 40 books his first day. I didn't ask him how many books he sold his second day, but he outsold me massively just with his first day alone. So there was traffic at the mall. We had a little traffic issue coming down my aisle. I was next to 2 artists. I was sandwiched between 2 artists who do fan art and make prints. They sell those prints for $20 a piece or 3 for $40. So they'll essentially do buy 2, get 1 free. That's a fairly common setup for artists. I sell my books for $20. So I always feel like I'm at the right price point. Joe sells his books for anywhere between $15 and $17. I don't believe he has any titles that are more than $17. So I contemplated after this week trying a different price point again and seeing if I'd move more books. But if I give away $5 on every single book, then it makes it a little bit more difficult to be profitable. So I don't think I'm going to change my price, but I was feeling desperate. That's just the honest truth. After selling 14 books in 2 days, I put about 16 hours of my own life into the show, and at 14 books for 16 hours, that's less than a book an hour. There were a lot of really dead down times. It was a bummer. I had done Merle Hay this past winter, and I did really well at that show. Actually, it was one of my better shows. It's the one I've told the story of before, where the gentleman came along, and I think at that time I was selling my book for $18, and he said, wow, that's really expensive. Came back around, said his wife wanted him to buy the book for her. He did buy it. And then the next morning he came back and said she read it in a single sitting and loved it and had to buy the other 2. So he ended up getting the first 3 books in the series. And that was a hugely encouraging moment. That happened at the Merle Hay Mall. So I went in with good expectations. What I will tell you is that I think after day 1, especially as we were getting later into the day and there just was no traffic, and I had pitched my book and some people had just been like, oh, I'm going to look around. Getting enough of those, I think, started to feel a bit like that old Mike Tyson thing. Nobody knows how they're going to react until they get punched in the face, or everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. That's the saying. And it felt a little bit like getting punched in the face. So I believe part of my own problem going especially into Sunday was that I just didn't bring a lot of energy. I wasn't calling out to every person who walked past my table. There definitely was a traffic problem. Both of the guys selling prints, we each had 3 sales on Sunday. So between all of us, we each just sold 3 things to 3 different people. And that was, I think, difficult for all of us. We agreed it was tough down our aisle. Usually, I do better, even in bad traffic situations. I was standing next to a guy who was selling prints at the Madison Tattoo Fest, and he did so poorly there that he demanded that they let him move his booth, and he moved his booth for the Sunday. I never followed up with him. It was the first time I'd been next to somebody that I just felt a little bit, I didn't respect him because he whined a lot about the circumstances. But here I was at the Merle Hay Mall, really just rolling around in the mud and feeling bad for myself that it didn't go according to plan. So I have Peoria this week coming up. I will leave either late Friday night or early Saturday morning. It's a 6-hour drive for me. It's another QuadCon, so it'll be at a mall, and I need to make sure that I bring all of my energy and all of my heart to this show to do better. I expect a lot more of myself, and I do feel like my own attitude definitely got in my way. I wasn't going to sell more than 25 books at that show, even if I was on my A game. That's just the level of traffic. And there was a huge difference where you were at the center of the mall. It was really busy. I had to walk by there to get to the bathroom. And every time I would, there would just be people mingling, looking at the tables and, taking their time. And it seemed like where we were at, people were assertively on their way out of the mall, not ready to talk. And so that's okay. There were a mix of situations, circumstances going on that led to the outcome I had. But it will be now the worst show that I've done anywhere. I did a Des Moines book sale at a book fair. And I met Harriet Everin there, a great person. I hope to maybe have her on the show at some point. She's a horror author and very active on Instagram, has a great account, a lot of followers. Most of her posts do really, really well. So she's pretty successful with Instagram. I have a lot to learn from her on that area. That particular show in Des Moines, the book fair, I sold 7 books, but it was one-day show, and it was actually a fairly tight time window. So in number of total books, that was a pretty bad one, but I felt like Merle Hay was worse, just given the number of hours I had to sell books. And then I've had a handful of other shows that haven't been great. I sold only 7 books on my first day at GalaxyCon in Oklahoma City. I think I've told that story before, but I left that show. It was a 3-day show with just under 100 books sold. So that ended up being one of my better shows ever. But there is absolutely opportunity to grow and sell more books. And I think that I'm leaving, even on my best days, I think I'm still leaving stuff on the table. I got to peer at Joe Prozit's sales. He was showing me he is very data driven and did an amazing job kind of giving me an idea of where his sales are at and what he's been doing. And I noticed it seems to me that he tends to sell as many or more books than I do at any given show. He has more titles than I do, and that might have something to do with it. But more often than not, when I see people walking around, if they've got one of Joe's books, they typically only have one. So I think he's actually doing really well from a perspective of getting people to stop and buy a book. So pay a lot more attention to what he's doing. Really encouraged that the ability to do that is out there, because it means, if he's able to do it, I am able to do it. I need to get better at what I'm doing. So that is what I've got for you this week. Like I said, not the most encouraging. I need to be focusing on getting Instagram going better, and I really need to focus on how I can get the organic social media to lead to book sales, to lead to more follows, to lead to more reach. It needs to be a multi-pronged thing where it's not just growth for growth's sake, and that it's not just sales and then the transaction is dead. So those are the things I'm focusing on. Hopefully this helps you to know that people who are doing this on a weekly basis are really struggling to figure it out, but that I'm not so discouraged that I feel like quitting. I am discouraged, and sometimes I feel like quitting, but most of the time I take these setbacks and learn from them. And if you are experiencing that in your own writing life right now, you want more readers and you just don't seem to be reaching them, allow yourself to be discouraged, but learn from that frustration. Try new things, experiment, go forward, meet new readers, sell more books. If you enjoy this podcast, I want to ask you to go ahead and drop a rating on your podcast platform. It really helps me to reach a larger audience. And the podcast is a big part of why I'm able to do what I'm doing. So if you enjoy this show, please take a moment, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else, to just rate the show. You don't even have to leave a review. They'll give you the ability to leave a star rating, give an honest rating, and help me out. And we'll talk to you again next week.
Becoming a household name won't happen overnight, but with your help, it can happen for me or for anyone you know who's on this journey. If you liked what you heard today, would you consider sharing this podcast with someone you know would love it too? Word of mouth is the single biggest difference maker for a dreamer's outcome. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.